We will get to Josh Pate at 7:40.
Yes.
It's a Pate State Wednesday.
It is.
He had my team on upset alert last night. He thinks it's going to be a chaos Saturday, and my game was included on it on Friday night.
Well, Friday games are a little weird.
They're funky, and it's a look-ahead spot. You got a big one loom. I'm already getting hit up for media requests for next week. Everybody's already going to next week.
Ducks are 6-0 on Friday nights at Autzen.
Yeah, see, I hate those things. That's so stupid. That means nothing. Somebody asked Dan Lanning at his press conference this week, why do you think your team plays so well on Friday? And I thought, I don't think he's ever played a game on Friday here.
Yeah, maybe one. Might have had one.
He's only been here 3, maybe a Civil War was on a Friday.
Pac-12 title game.
Okay, I'm regular season, I feel like. A little bit different, but touche.
And
they lost that game. So they're not undefeated on Friday.
They're 6-0 at Autzen on Friday night games.
And it's like
the university is.
The university, not Dan Lanning.
Okay.
So
let's get to some of that Dan Lanning audio. I try to be as honest as I can on this. I have zero juice for this game.
That's okay.
I will watch it, but I've also seen Aiden Childs play. I think Oregon's going to have a pick 6 in this game. Let's start on the similarities of Jonathan Smith at Michigan State versus Jonathan Smith and what he was at Oregon State.
Yeah, there's definitely some, similar pieces. I think they always do a good job of challenging you in the run game, creating different pictures than maybe what you see, across college football. They always do a great job of that. Defensively a little bit different than what they were last year at Oregon State, but still really, really sound, and do some things that challenge you as well.
And that Michigan State quarterback, we speak of Aiden Childs. He's super athletic, and he's got a big arm, but he's throwing the ball to the wrong team a lot this year. Dan Lanning on Aiden Childs.
One of the biggest things that sticks out is the way he's able to keep plays alive and continue to make things happen with his legs. Their average depth of target is way downfield, right? They take a lot of shots. They have some wideouts out there that have done a good job winning on the perimeter, and he throws a really good deep ball. So, I think those are probably the two things that stick out the most is, the ability to connect on deep shots, and then his ability to extend plays with his feet.
So there's Dan Lanning on Aiden Childs, and you brought this up yesterday, and we polled it. Dirt, you said Jonathan Smith at his press conference, he left Oregon State. That conference got blown up. It's now trying to rebuild itself. He's been asked a number of times about Oregon State and the Pac-12, and largely wants nothing to do with those questions. That's why he won't respond to an email request to do an interview out here.
Yeah, we tried to get him on the show this week. That did not get.
And we knew it wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, did not get responded to.
Here he is being asked about survivor's guilt.
I guess, that conference was a historical conference of champions, and that's painful when that kind of goes away. There is some pride and grit to the two great places that are still there, Washington State and Oregon State, and so they play at a high level. They're playing at a high level this year. And so I think a lot of us, I don't know what regret, but just do remember how great that conference was and know how good those two universities.
I think the reason I have no juice for this game is you look up Michigan State's stats, and you could have watched Ohio State and had a takeaway from this too. But the thing about Jonathan Smith at Michigan State, it's a rebuild for them. They are 15th in the Big Ten in rushing offense. We know that's not Jonathan Smith and what he wants to do eventually.
No.
So it's just like the quarterback throws the ball to the other team. They can't really run the ball. They're clearly in a deficit of talent compared to a school like Oregon. And maybe this is to Pate's point, a trap-ish game. I just think Oregon already had their trap-ish game.
Sure as hell hope so, man. I sure as hell hope so. I tend to agree with you. I just think the matchup, it doesn't lean into making you concerned about a loss. And primary by that, I mean, you mentioned the offensive numbers behind Michigan State. They can't run the football this year. Go look at what they did last week against Ohio State. They could not run they averaged 1.9 yards per carry. And Aiden Childs in that game was 13 of 19 for 160 yards. And that was at home, by the way, right? So now you're going on the road in a short week, coming off that style of game. The other part of it is, I think in order for there to be an upset brewing, and I hope these aren't famous last words, there has to be a strength that the other team can lean on to try and win a certain matchup, to drag out a game. You kind of saw this. Washington was the better team with Rutgers, but they kind of played keep away, milk the clock, let's run the football. It's not going to be pretty. We're not going to outgain them, but we have a strength that we can lean on in order to win. Michigan State doesn't really have any of those that make you terrified. They're not great against the run. Defensively, I think they're 11th in the Big Ten in stopping the run.
Yeah.
It's not like they play juggernauts all year. They've only played one quality opponent. Their total defense is in the bottom half of the conference as well. So their one strength that they have a little bit of, at least going into last week, was getting after the quarterback. They have a lot of tackles for loss, sacks. Those kind of piled up for them in the first month of the season. What disappeared when they played Ohio State? All of those numbers, because you're going against the best offensive line you've seen. And so it would be one thing, like when Genty came to town with Boise, in hindsight, it's one of those like, yeah, he can kind of control the game, and he's a breakaway star, and he's going to have a couple of highlights that is going to keep Boise around in that matchup. There just isn't that player or unit right now on Michigan State that you could say, if they are to pull off the upset, this is what they can lean on to do it, because it's a bunch of weaknesses and averages kind of all across the board.
So I think what Pate would say, because in my mind, I cannot imagine Michigan State coming into Autzen Stadium and winning, even if Oregon doesn't play a good game. I don't think they played the cleanest game against UCLA.
Had a great first half until the pick six, and then didn't do much in the second half.
I told my buddy who's an Oregon fan, we were watching the UCLA game, and, he's like, yeah, UCLA sucks. And I go, well, you got Michigan State, and actually Michigan State's much better. I go, they're Diet Coke UCLA. Like, they're a little better. They're not much different. I don't think it's that big of a difference right now with where those two programs are. But even if you play a down game, I guess the argument would be the look-ahead spot.
Yeah, that's the argument for an upset.
We had back-to-back patsies. This one Friday, short week. We just need to go up 30-7, and we're sitting, and then we're resting and getting ready for our massive game next weekend, which, by the way, under the radar, Ohio State has Iowa. Now, they're at home, but I still look at that and say, well, Iowa, you're not going to probably lose to Iowa, but Iowa's physical.
Yeah, it's a good defense.
That's a good defense.
Yeah.
That's a team that wants to drag you into the mud, and even if you're in the mud and you may win, it's still like, and you're playing Saturday, Ducks play Friday, so I guess the argument would be the look-ahead spot. The Friday night game against the patsy of the Big Ten or one of the patsies, and you don't take them seriously, and you play how you played against, I guess to lose, it'd have to be like how you played against Idaho, but
Yeah.
I just don't foresee that. Maybe it's clunky. Maybe it's not perfect. I don't foresee them playing like that.
No, I don't either. I think the argument, you're spot on. It's you're not focused on this game and you're focused on what's to come. I'm hopeful that doesn't happen because Oregon has played 4 games this year, 2 of them at home, 2 of them on the road. They have made their fans pucker and panic for 4 quarters in each of their 2 home games, and they've looked great on the road and cruised to easy victories. So it'd be nice to give the home fans an easy game where you can leave in the third quarter. It's a Friday night. Look at that. We're up by 30. This game's going to be over. Let's bring Dante Moore in and let him be the victory cigar. So it'd be nice to have that kind of
Novosad, right?
Hey, Dante Moore's still number 2, okay? Don't you get over your skis on me on
Just
that
get
one.
ready for Austin Novosad.
But I think the other aspect that I would point to, and nobody's going to buy into this or expect it to happen, but I think the other thought that's just rattling around in my head is, what is Aiden Childs? And is there ever going to be this season a click moment for him? Like,
is this the season for that?
I don't know. Maybe it's
Is
not.
this
Maybe
a growing pain season?
Very
and
well
next
could.
year it's like, yo, I took my lumps, I learned, and now I have the experience.
I think we can all acknowledge, whether you're an Oregon State fan or not, or we're high on him, or like, there's a lot of talent and potential there. We all know it. We all see it. And the physicalness of him. I remember being at the Civil War last year, and he's a big dude, man.
Yeah.
He's a lot bigger than you think. He's well built, and so there's something there. He just has not been able to put it together. I would almost make it the equivalent of like, he's like the Washington Huskies as a player. Like, you see it. I'm watching, and I'm like, I know that this is better than what I'm seeing as the end result, but you just haven't been able to get out of your own way, and you haven't been able to stop turning the ball over. It might not happen this year because, to your original point in this segment, they can't run the football, and Jonathan Smith wants to run the football. And if you can't do that, it's going to be an uphill battle for your quarterback. But that's the other part of this game that I think will be interesting is maybe it doesn't happen. Maybe he throws 3 picks, and to your point of pick 6, he has a lot of talent. And at some point you wonder, will a light bulb go off for him of saying, okay, now I've figured it out and the game is slowing down for me?
Yeah. The Jonathan Smith return game too, like, I don't think it actually resonates for him mentally that he's coming back to the state of Oregon. I just don't think he operates that way. So it's like, if he doesn't care, I don't really care.
Well, and his point in his press conference was, I came back when I was at Boise. I think
Washington.
He came back when he was at Washington. Like,
I think he came back from, I think he was at Idaho and they played Oregon State once.
Probably. It sounds
maybe
about
I'm wrong.
right.
Maybe I'm wrong on that one, but to your point, Boise State, Washington for sure.
Like, this isn't going back and coaching in Corvallis.
Well,
and the media out there was trying to make a much bigger deal out of it.
Also, what I think Beaver fan, it's okay to not like him and call him a snake, all that stuff. Okay. But like, what I don't think everybody understands is there is a disconnect for him. He is in a job. His life is not, I'm an alum, I'm a
No.
big fan. My job is I'm coaching. I don't view this that way anymore.
No.
This is my livelihood.
I just lost 38-7 to Ohio State. Now I
Yes.
got to go on the road to Autzen Stadium and play a top 10 team in the country.
Right. You're right.
He's
So-
just trying to not get blown out of the building. That's what he's worried about.